All right, let's just get right into it. You've probably been told your whole life that your 50s are supposed to be your golden years, right? Time to relax, pick up a hobby, enjoy the life you built. Well, the source material we're digging into today paints let's just say, a much, much harsher picture.
And there it is. That's a direct quote, and it's the absolute core of what we're unpacking. This idea that you get a nice little plaque and a handshake for 30 years of hard work, this framework argues that's just a fairy tale. It's a story whispered in your ear to keep you compliant while the system drains every last bit of energy you have.
So, what are you to this big corporate system? A valued member of the team? Part of the family? No, not even close. According to this source, you are, quite simply, a spare part. You're a cog in a huge machine, and after a few decades, that cog starts to get a little rusty, a little slow, and frankly, a little too expensive to maintain.
And this brings us right to our first section. This isn't just a midlife turning point, no. According to this way of thinking, it's the front line. It's a brand new war for your own survival, and it's a war you probably never even knew you had to prepare for.
The logic is as simple as it is cold-blooded. Your value is all about one thing: your output versus your cost. The second that your cost, and that includes your salary, your benefits, your rising health needs, starts to outweigh your output, well, you're not an asset anymore. You become a liability, a red line on a spreadsheet. And what does a cold, logical system do with a faulty part? It gets rid of it.
So, if this is a war, who exactly are you fighting? See, this isn't just about bad luck or a tough economy. The argument here is that you're up against very specific, very powerful adversaries who actually benefit from keeping things just the way they are.
The source points to three main enemies in this fight. First, the corporate system itself, which is designed to use you up. Second, the banks, which trap you in debt. And third, the central bank, which quietly steals the value of your savings through inflation. We're going to break down how to fight each one.
Which brings us to our very first survival tactic. Now, forget everything you've ever heard about a rainy day fund. This is a go-back. Think of it like military-grade survival gear, but for a financial apocalypse that could hit tomorrow morning, not 10 years from now.
This is where this philosophy really goes against the grain. You know, most financial gurus talk about a nice, comfortable emergency fund, maybe 6 months of your salary. This framework calls that a peacetime luxury. It calls for a war chest. This is the bag you grab when you get that surprise email saying your services are no longer required.
And let's be absolutely crystal clear what this money is for. It is not for vacation, it's not for a new phone, it is for combat logistics. It's designed for one thing and one thing only: to buy you time. Time is the most expensive, most valuable ammunition you have in this war. It gives you that critical 6 to 12-month window to survive, regroup, and plan your next move.
And the most crucial rule here: liquidity. It is mandatory. The ammo in your go bag has to be available the instant you need it. We're talking money market funds, high-yield savings accounts. The advice is stark. Do not put this money in stocks or real estate. You can't sell your house on a Tuesday morning to buy groceries on Wednesday.
All right, the next two tactics are a 1-2 punch. They work together. The first is all about breaking free from the enemy's control, and the second is about building your own defenses that they can't touch.
I want you to really honestly think about this question for a second. Why do so many of us stay in jobs that make us miserable? Why don't we just walk away, start that business, take that risk? It usually boils down to fear, right? But what are we really afraid of?
And here's the gut punch answer from the source. You're not actually afraid of your boss. You're afraid of your real master, the bank. That mortgage, the car payment, the credit card bills, those are the real chains. They're the things that guarantee you'll show up to work every single day, no matter how much you might hate it.
Now, this is a devastating piece of logic. Every time you make an interest payment, you are, in effect, handing ammunition over to the very system that this source claims will discard you later. You are literally paying for the construction of your own prison. So the first step in this fight is to stop funding the enemy.
Okay, on to tactic 3, building the fortress. Let's talk about that invisible enemy, inflation. So you work your whole life, you bust your butt to save up, say, $100,000, but while you're doing that, the central banking system is printing trillions of new dollars out of thin air. And what does that do to the value of your hard-earned cash? It decimates it. The source calls it legal robbery. So what's the solution? Well, the idea is to build a fortress with assets that the system can't just create with a few keystrokes. This means moving some of your wealth into things like physical gold and silver, actual tangible property like land or buildings, and even holding some strong foreign currencies. These are real things that exist outside the system's direct control.
And that brings us to the end game. These last two tactics are all about a fundamental shift, both in your mindset and in your physical location, to finally achieve real freedom. It's about going from being a pawn in the game to being the one who controls the board.
For 30 years, the system trains you to have what's called a slave mentality. You learn to depend on your monthly ration, your salary. It's just enough to keep you alive, but never enough to let you be free. The master mentality flips that script completely. A master doesn't wait for someone to give them a ration. They build a factory that produces rations. In other words, they build assets that create income, even while they're sleeping.
And finally, Tactic 5 is about leaving the battlefield altogether. Big cities are described as kill zones. They are financial machines designed to suck every last dollar out of you. This tactic is all about the incredible power of geographic arbitrage. Think about it. Let's say your asset factory kicks off $2,000 a month. In a huge city, you're barely surviving. But in a small town somewhere else, you could be living like a king.
And that, right there, is the whole point of Tactic 5. Winning this war isn't about who has the biggest number in their bank account. It's about whose money has the most power. It's about maximizing your freedom and your quality of life by being smart about where you choose to live it.
So, we've laid out the entire battle plan. We've identified the enemies, we've gone through the 5 tactics for survival. According to this source, the system really doesn't care about you. And at age 50, that alarm bell starts ringing, loud. And now the final choice is completely up to you.
Which one will you be? Will you end up a financial refugee, panicked, still drowning in debt, trapped in that expensive kill zone, just hoping the system shows you a little mercy? Or will you show up as a prepared war veteran, independent, totally debt-free, with your own assets generating income, living life on your own terms in a safe zone that you chose?
And that is the final, provocative question that this framework leaves you with. The clock is ticking. The system is not going to wait for you to get your act together. The choice is stark, and the time to make it is right now.